They said he screamed my name before the fire took him. I wasn't there to hear it. I was already crawling out of the wreckage, blind from smoke, hands burned to the bone, still clutching a flight stick that didn't respond anymore. When the explosion hit, I didn't die. He did. They called me a hero. But every time someone said, "You saved them," I heard, "You left him." That's the part no one understands about survival. It's not living that haunts you. It's how you lived when someone else didn't. My name is Delaney Brooks, and I've been running from that fire for 10 years, until the day I walked into a room full of pilots who laughed, and heard one of them say, "Real pilots only." That was the moment I knew. The fire had found me again. The air in Denver that morning felt sharp enough to cut skin. Dry, metallic, heavy with jet fuel. The Sky Guard training base sat like a silver scar across the plateau, its hangars lined up beneath a slogan painted in navy blue. Excellence is a habit. I walked into the briefing room at exactly 07:45. 12 young men turned at once, their new uniforms crisp, their confidence unshaken. The kind of faces that still believed danger was just another adrenaline rush. Laughter faded as I stepped inside. Then a blonde lieutenant leaned back, smirking. "Real pilots only. Ma'am, Instructor's lounge is next door." The others chuckled. I set my tablet down without a word. Years in uniform had taught me restraint, the patience to let silence do the talking. A door opened behind me. Colonel Paul Mason entered, his voice steady, posture formal. He looked across the room, paused, then saluted. "Good to have you back. Phoenix 1. Every laugh died. Reeves froze mid-smile. Someone whispered the name like a rumor. I returned the salute and took my seat, the weight of that title pressing against my chest. None of them knew it came from fire that had taken everything but me. After the briefing, I crossed paths with Lieutenant Colonel Jake Harmon, Sky Guard's operations chief. We'd served together once. His handshake was tight, his eyes sharper. "Didn't expect to see you again." Neither did I. On the wall behind him hung a faded poster. "Tomorrow's safety starts today." I almost laughed. Safety, I thought, is often built on someone else's silence. That afternoon, I checked the system logs. Harmon's signature was there, approving the same fire alert module that had failed years ago. That night, an anonymous email arrived. "Welcome back from the ashes. Phoenix. 10 years ago, the sky over Syria burned like molten glass. The MH-60 rescue bird shuddered under my hands as tracer rounds cut through the clouds. The mission was supposed to be simple: get civilians out and return before the ridge collapsed. It never is that simple. A missile hit the tail. Fire rolled through the cabin, the heat blooming so fast it felt alive. Beside me, Aaron Vance's voice stayed calm, almost steady against the chaos. "Get them home, Del." I pulled the stick hard enough to make my fingers bleed, kept the aircraft level long enough to drop 3 civilians on the pad. Then came a flash, a roar, and nothing. When I woke, the smell of smoke had already seeped into my skin. Aaron was gone. They called me the miracle pilot, but all I could hear was the silence where his voice used to be. I left the service and carried his burned dog tag everywhere I went. It was heavier than any medal, heavier than the praise I never wanted. Years later, when the FAA asked me to return as an advisor, I almost refused. Then I saw the name of the program, Sky Guard, the same line of aircraft that had failed him. If I didn't come back, someone else would burn for the same mistake. That's when I found the signature buried in the records. Jake Harmon. He'd been the technical officer on Aaron's team back then, the one who approved the software update Aaron fought to stop, the man who'd let the system fail before, now running the same program. The flames had a new name, but they were the same fire. In the first week at Sky Guard, they laughed behind my back, calling me the ghost pilot, the woman who climbed out of a fire when better men didn't. I let them talk. I had work to do. During a simulation test, the temperature climbed past threshold, but the warning light stayed dark. I killed the power and demanded the logs. Nobody moved. Later that night, in the hangar's shadows, A young engineer named Karen Goyen approached me, voice trembling. The system had been shut down automatically a month ago, she said. Maintenance costs, her supervisor claimed. I told her to send me the data. She whispered that speaking up could cost her job. I told her silence could cost lives. The next morning, Harmon found me by the hangar doors. His smile was thin, his words colder. You're here to make FAA look good, not to dig up ghosts. Don't make me bury you with them. I met his stare. I've already been buried once. I know how to rise. Later that day, I traced his initials in an internal memo, his order to skip sensor calibration to save time. That night, I found a folded note in my flight locker, the handwriting uneven and rushed. He screamed your name before the fire took him. The hangar wind howled through the vents, a sound too close to the memory of fire. I sat there, holding the scorched tag, listening to the echo of Aaron's voice in my head. Keep them flying. Dell. The second fire was coming, and this time, I wasn't running from it. They called me in for an emergency flight simulation test. Scott Reeves had been chosen to lead the scenario, a mock engine fire, while I sat in the observer's chair. His confidence filled the room like static. He tapped his fingers on the throttle, smirking, eager to prove something. When the alarm blared, the red engine firelight flashed across the screen. Reeves hesitated, picked the wrong command, and the simulated aircraft spiraled into a virtual nosedive. I shouted for him to kill the throttle, to dump the fuel. No one moved. I took control, shut the system down, and the screen went black. The silence that followed was louder than the alarm itself. I pulled off my headset, my voice even. You just killed 3 people in simulation. Lieutenant, don't make it 4 next time. Harmon entered right then, cold and composed. You had no command authority. Brooks, authority doesn't matter when gravity does, I said. By afternoon, I was summoned to an internal review. The report claimed the simulation log had auto-deleted overnight. The black box file, gone. Kara slipped into my office later, whispering that Harmon had signed a data reset order 20 minutes after the test. That's when I understood. It wasn't about one faulty drill or a careless pilot. This was a pattern, a system built to erase its own mistakes, and I was standing right in its center. That night, the distant hum of engines rolled through the base. The air smelled of jet fuel and frost. I stared out the window, the lights of the runway flickering like ghosts. The sound pulled me backward, to the night Aaron died. His voice echoed in the back of my mind, steady and calm as the storm. Don't flinch, Dell. The fire's not our enemy. Fear is. I took the scorched dog tag from my pocket and closed my hand around it. The metal burned cold against my palm. Fear isn't the problem, I whispered. Letting it make your choices is. 2 days later, Kara appeared at my door, holding a small USB drive sealed in a zip bag labeled Archive 2015. She said she'd found it buried deep in the technical directory. I plugged it in, and the world seemed to stop. It was an internal FAA safety report from 8 years ago, about the same aircraft model I had flown. The final line hit like a punch. Warning light failure. Not corrected due to supply chain constraints. Signed, Jake Harmon. I stared at his name, the same one that now sat behind every Skyguard decision. My pulse roared in my ears. He'd approved the defect, the one that killed Aaron, and he was doing it again. I walked straight to his office and dropped the report on his desk. You ignored this. Aaron died because of it. He leaned back, smirking, coffee cup in hand. Aaron Vance died because he was careless, not because of me. Don't turn your survival into a weapon. You think I'm after revenge? I think you missed the spotlight you lost. I wanted to scream, but instead I stood straighter. I don't need a spotlight. I just need the truth not buried with him. Harmon's tone dropped, colder than before. If you take this public, the FAA will shut the program down. And when they do, they'll start digging into who survived that crash. You'll burn again, Brooks. I walked out before he could see my hands shaking. My phone buzzed in the hallway, a new anonymous message. He screamed your name before the explosion. That night, a knock rattled my apartment door. Reeves stood there, pale, the arrogance gone from his face. "Ma'am, I checked the simulator logs. The fire sequence was disabled manually. Someone's lying." For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, the same kind that once lived in mine. I didn't have to tell him what came next. He already knew. The fire was back, and this time, I wasn't the only one who'd have to walk through it. I knew Harmon was hiding something, not because he lied well, but because I once lied the same way, thinking silence would shield people. Kara found me that night with a small drive in her palm, voice barely steady as she pressed it into my hand. It was a copy of the simulation black box. The file opened and the line burned across the screen. System warning override. User J.J. Harmon. Manual bypass. My chest went lead heavy. He had disabled the fire alert himself at 22:47, the exact minute the simulator started to smoke. I printed the log with shaking hands. Every option brutal. If I exposed it, FAA would tear the program down and hundreds would lose work. If I kept it, someone would die. I went to Harmon's office at dawn. He didn't flinch when I told him I had seen the data. He smiled thinly and said he expected as much. He'd planted a tracking tag. He stepped closer and quieter than I imagined, accused me of enjoying the myth that followed me. Then he dropped the threat like an anchor. If I went public, they would reopen Syria, dig through old reports, and find the memo that suggested I abandoned the cockpit before Aaron's death. He said he had a copy. I felt cold. Later, studying older logs, I found an entry signed V. Ants. Attempted to patch fire alert circuit manually, denied by technical lead. Harmon had blocked Vance's fix. He had watched it fail. He tried to bury Aaron. I would not bury him again. Rain came that night, wind pushing fuel smell across the runway. The alarm screamed, "Hangar Bay." Flames ate the simulator bay. Someone shouted, "Reeves is still inside." No one moved. I grabbed an oxygen mask and ran. Smoke hit like a physical thing, thick and hot. Metal creaked around me. I found Reeves unconscious in the control room and dragged him free, skin burned, lungs screaming. We collapsed on the concrete. This time, I did not lose another person. Next morning, the press called me. The Phoenix returned. FAA opened an investigation into safety violations. Harmon came by the hospital, smug until I told him I knew about the disabled sensors and that now there were witnesses. His smile vanished. Kara slipped a black USB into my hand, recovered from the rubble, the untouched black box. When I played it, Aaron's voice came through, not from the crash feed, but a saved message to Harmon. "Jake, the system's failing. If we stay silent, we're complicit." Outside the window, snow fell soft and white. The blaze outside had gone out, but the fire inside me was bright and impossible to put down. The headquarters in Washington gleamed under sterile light. The conference walls too white, too cold. They called it the briefing room, the place where truth was supposed to live on paper. I'd sat in one like it years ago, humiliated by the words, "real pilots only." Today, I came back with proof. Harmon sat across the table. Gray suit, practiced smirk. The kind of confidence that came from knowing how to bend the system. Around him, company representatives and press officers whispered behind clipped smiles. Kara sat at the end, knuckles white around a folder. The chairman asked if I wished to present new evidence. I plugged in the USB, the bandages on my hands catching the light. The screen filled with text. System warning override. User J. Harmon. Manual bypass. 8 years ago, this system killed Major Aaron Vance. I said slowly. Last week, it nearly killed Lieutenant Reeves. The error is the same. The silence is the same. Harmon leapt to his feet, shouting about manipulation. I told him to verify it. He said I couldn't prove intent. I told him negligence was enough. Then I played the recording, Aaron's voice, rough but steady. "Jake, the system's failing. If we stay silent, we're complicit." The room froze. Kara stood, voice trembling but clear, confirming the log's authenticity. Then the doors opened. Reeves entered, arm in a sling, standing straight. "Ma'am saved me from the fire he caused." Cameras turned to Harmon. He had no words left. The chairman rose and saluted me. "Good to have you back. Phoenix won." In that stillness, I felt the weight lift. They had mocked me once for being a ghost. But ghosts don't fade. They linger until the truth is finally seen. 3 months after the hearing, the FAA suspended Harmon and froze every Skyguard contract pending criminal review. His name disappeared from the halls where it used to echo. Kara stayed on and was promoted to Chief Systems Engineer. Reeves finished his final evaluation and was reassigned to field training in North Dakota, where the sky stretched wide and clean. They offered me a corner office in Washington, the title of National Safety Director. I declined. Titles had never saved anyone. Instead, I asked for a smaller post back in Denver, one that came with a flight simulator. Not a mahogany desk. I called it the Phoenix Protocol, a new training program built around one purpose: teaching pilots how to bring everyone home, even when everything goes wrong. I spent the first weeks alone in that hangar, rewriting manuals, erasing jargon, replacing it with a single phrase at the top of every page: integrity before image. The sound of turbines testing in the distance no longer made me tense. It reminded me of beginnings. One evening, an email from Reeves appeared in my inbox. "Ma'am, I stopped trying to look perfect. I just try to be good. Thank you." He signed it. Lotte. James Vector Reeves. Vector. The name made me smile. Vance. Vector. One letter apart, one generation ahead. That night, I walked past Harmon's now empty office. The air still carried the faint scent of his cologne and burnt coffee. On his desk, a framed photo remained: Harmon and Aaron standing beside their first helicopter, grinning like brothers. The inscription read, "To Jake. Trust the system." I picked it up, brushed the dust from the glass, and whispered, "He warned you, Jake. Maybe someday you'll understand. We don't protect systems. We protect lives." I set the photo back where it belonged and left. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, soundless, impossibly clean. A week later, an internal FAA memo circulated quietly through the network. At the bottom, a single line was added to the Phoenix Protocol header: "In honor of Major Aaron Vance and Commander Delaney Brooks for teaching us to fly through fire. They say heroes are made in war. They're wrong. Heroes are made in the silence that follows, when the world forgets your name, and you still choose to do what's right." Dawn stretched over Colorado like a slow breath of light. The air above the Rockies was knife-cold, the kind that burned clean through the lungs. Inside the cockpit of the new Skyguard, everything was stripped bare. No corporate logos, no slogans, no noise, but the steady hum of the engines and my heartbeat keeping time. Skyguard 1, cleared for takeoff. Copy that. Lifting. The nose lifted. Wheels left the runway, and the world dropped away beneath me. The horizon split open, a thin red line where the sun met the mountains. At 20,000 feet, the first light caught the canopy, pouring gold across the glass. My hand brushed the scorched dog tag bolted beside the flight panel, the one that once hung against Aaron's chest. It wasn't a relic anymore. It was a compass. He was still flying with me, just in another sky. No guilt, no ghosts, only calm. They once said real pilots only. Turns out, that's exactly what I am. Not because I fly higher, but because I didn't stop when the fire came. Because I stayed, I banked left, slicing through thin clouds, the wings catching the early light like metal dipped in flame. Below, the peaks of the Rockies shimmered gold, the snow reflecting a soft blaze that looked almost alive. For a moment, it felt as if the whole world was burning again. Only this time, it wasn't destruction, it was illumination. The same fire that once consumed everything I loved now guided me forward, steady, unwavering. The smoke had cleared, and what remained was clarity. I finally understood what Aaron had meant when he said, "Get them home." It was never just about the mission. It was about learning to come home to yourself. As the jet leveled into the open blue, I smiled. A small, unguarded thing. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't flying to outrun the past. I was flying because I wanted to, because I could. I climbed higher, watching the world shrink into quiet shapes below, the horizon endless, the light endless. The higher I went, the softer everything felt, the scars, the noise, the years. Fire doesn't only burn, it reveals. And sometimes, to see who you really are, you have to walk through it one more time.